Hey, the following podcast contains adult language and themes. Listener discretion is advised.
You better get comfortable, because now we're going there.
No, you didn't.
Taboo topics are back on the table.
Damn, it's hot in here. I'm LeJohn.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Joe, and this is the Going There podcast.
Today, what we're going to talk about should not be a taboo topic. No kind of science should be, but especially when it comes to the thing that we are witnessing on a daily basis, which is climate change. So I was doing some research leading up to this. According to NASA, the vital signs of the planet going through these catastrophic changes in simple bullet-pointed data kind of looks like this. Carbon dioxide levels in the air continually rise. They're currently at their highest in over 650,000 years. That's where we're at, just right now. 19 of the warmest years have occurred since the year 2000. Think about that. 19 of the warmest years just in the last 20 years. We've risen 2.1 degrees Fahrenheit globally since 1880. Now, while that doesn't sound like a lot, that's huge when you're talking about the impacts that it has on the global temperature and a fragile ecosystem of ice sheets, sea levels, droughts, those kinds of things. The Arctic ice is melting at 13.1% by decade. 13.1%. This is a finite amount of ice sheets that we have. They're losing 429 billion metric tons per year. And then the sea level is rising at 3.3 millimeters per year. So some of our favorite places to go visit by the shore aren't going to exist in the future. There's so many problems. And those numbers, those are all scary things, and they should be scary. But what we're talking about isn't all about the fear factor. Yes, fear is why people deny these things. You know, if I can put it out of mind and pretend it's not real, maybe it won't be. When something's too scary, we put it out of mind until it's too late. So let's talk for a moment about climate change, where your heads are at, and why you think people deny it.
It's simple for me, man. I'm the type of dude that has no problem admitting what I don't know. And I'm not super knowledgeable on this stuff. Meanwhile, there are people who have spent their lives researching this. And who am I not to trust their work and their science and their results? So therefore, if you say that this ball is getting hotter based upon the years of research that you've done, well, shit, the ball's getting hotter. And we need to do something about it. And now I'm in the position of what can I do as myself as an individual to decrease the temperature. That's where I stand. I just don't understand the folks that without any kind of education, without any kind of knowledge, without any kind of experience, oh, no, that's not true. That's bullshit. Well, how? How is that possible? Based upon what? And I'm not going to sit here and say it's bullshit to somebody who's been studying this stuff for years and making it their life work. No, that's just dumb. We got a hot ball, y'all, and we got to cool this ball down.
But he's hoping that they're cold blue balls next.
How do we blue ball Mother Earth again? Joe, how about you? Have you ever been a denier? Have you ever been one of the people? No.
No, I don't understand that. If you don't want to admit something because it's uncomfortable or inconvenient, I think that is what is going on, really. And anybody who's denying any of the science, why would a scientist try to lie about how the ice caps are melting?
Who stands to benefit from that?
Right.
From that big hoax?
Is there a company that is a container company that's oh, we're going to benefit from they're going to have to put all this melted ice cap somewhere, make them think that they need to buy buckets.
Yeah.
Buckets to fill the melted ice caps. I don't know. I mean, I've always believed it. Ever since I was a kid, I was always trying to help.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. I wish I could say the same. I think I at one point fell into denial, but I would say it was more kind of political and kind of the environment I was raised in, where I was told, you don't want to believe this. The Democrats are lying about X, Y, or Z. But then you really look at the effects of it. Like, think about the amount of deforestation we've seen on the planet. Each tree that exists absorbs carbon dioxide. And think about all the trees that we've cut down and not the ones that have been replanted. Think about the rainforest. That adds up. Man, that adds up so fast.
Well, yeah, I guess you should, if you're trying to convince people who don't believe it because of like a political thing, just call trees dollars.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
You got rid of so many dollars.
Yeah.
Your bank is empty. Like, fuck. Like, we have to replenish the bank. It's all about money.
Absolutely. It was kind of like Rick Santorum, I think, made a comment the other day where he's essentially admitting to the Native American genocide and saying like, well, I mean, their culture doesn't impact us. And I think it's kind of like that. It's like,
Whoa.
What were these trees doing? They were just standing around. Who gives a shit about them? They have nothing to do with our current culture. People would be like, they're getting in the way of progress. Dude, this is not progress. Like, it might be short term, but that's not even how you win the game of Monopoly.
Right. If you look at Singapore, they've done a wonderful job of incorporating plant life with all of their buildings. So you can still have a thriving city economy and still have a very green city too, like rooftop gardens.
But the continuous problem is, and we'll touch on this more, I'm certain, it's somebody else's problem. It's the future's problem. And that's why shit isn't getting done. And because you got a whole bunch of people who are in power who say to themselves, me and mine are cool. And as long as me and mine are cool for the right now, who gives a damn about the future? And that's the bullshit.
Yeah, it's the bullshit. And I think it's like the human way. Because so many of our problems can be fixed if it was a collective effort and if it was like a looking outside of yourself. But as soon as you... and I say the royal you, as soon as somebody can get out of that situation and they're able to like stay safe themselves, then they're like, well, I don't want to give up all of this because I could lose it all and I'm safe right now. So then they stay safe. And then the problem just perpetuates. And that's why we don't have single payer healthcare and a planet that's got hot balls.
Even the people who will say, or at least think to themselves, well, I'm rich and therefore my kids will be rich and they'll be fine. They have to realize that money at some point will mean nothing, right? That money isn't going to save their children, isn't going to put oxygen that no longer exists into their lungs. I just don't.
Yeah, I mean, it'll get you something. It'll get you like, for $2,000, you'll get like that rusty can of tuna fish or something that everyone's fighting over at the Aldi's that closed down a decade ago.
When those super rich kids get carted off into space to try to live on another planet, I mean, their money will buy them a nicer spot on the spaceship. But you better believe when they land on that new planet, none of that shit's going to matter. Money will have no meaning anymore.
True.
Bitcoin.
Crypto.
Yeah. The aliens are like, you guys are still using Dogecoin. So these are all great questions and conversations. And today we have an awesome show for you from a few different lenses and people from around the world. We tend to view our problems, and especially this one, from the standpoint of America. We always look at it as, well, this is America's thing to handle. No, I mean, we're a small part of the bigger problem in, let's say, context to China and some of these other countries. So what we need to do is try to look at how we can help, but stop seeing everything through the viewpoint of America and especially capitalism. So for better or worse, it isn't all about us. Our first guest on this topic is joining us from New Zealand. He's a podcaster and a podcast addict who's had a hand in a variety of shows and whose interest is very much on the topic of global warming and climate change. And he hosts his own series, Climactic. Mark Spencer, thank you for chatting with us today.
Thank you, Matt. Great to be here. Sorry about the lack of Kiwi accent.
I know. I'm like, oh, he's from New Zealand. Then I hear him. I'm like, he just sounds like a boring white dude from Ohio.
Damn straight. No, this is what you get when you take a Seattleite out of New Zealand for most of his life. You get a past its best by Seattle accent, and you combine it with New Zealand, and you basically get Vancouver. That's how the math works.
Yeah.
So, Mark, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, you said it. The most accurate part why I'm here today is I'm a podcast addict. I was a homeschooled only child growing up in rural. I say Seattle because it was the nearest landmark, but I still had cows, neighbors. So I was, homeschooled, which led to these lovely social graces. I grew up with headphones in my ears all day and night. And I started off with political talk radio. I was a Rush Limbaugh listener as a kid.
Oh, wow.
Went through a bit of a political change later in life.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Oh, yeah. Is he now officially a saint? I'm waiting for a school and a church and a hospital to be named after him. Maybe it can be a methadone clinic. Too soon? Don't care. So I found podcasts when I was about 12. They were pretty new at that point. I was doing like the downloading MP3 files and putting them on my kidney bean-shaped Rio MP3 player, which could hold 20 songs or one half of one episode of Rush Limbaugh. So that was great. Podcasts really sort of took over. I was going back and forth from the U.S. to New Zealand every year at that stage. So kind of podcasts is why I kept the accent, I think.
You said you kept your American accent because of podcasts?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
And it was very hard in New Zealand to actually say my name right. So you guys can say Mark, okay? Here I have to say Mac and sound like a sheep. So that one didn't appeal.
Really?
It's like very Boston.
Yeah, I was thinking it's Boston-esque.
Yeah, no R's.
And weren't you in Australia for some period of time?
Yeah, so like all Kiwis, I'm just going to keep saying it so you believe it, that I am in New Zealand and I'm a Kiwi under that. Like all New Zealanders, Kiwis. Mm-hmm. I went on my overseas experience, my OE, when I was 22. My then girlfriend, now wife, and I went to Australia, as most Kiwis tend to do, for the broader horizons and bigger skylines and better pay. It doesn't pay very well living in paradise, it seems.
Sure.
Like you can't get, It's weird how that's related.
Is real estate expensive there?
Oh my God. Yeah, no, I've come back into a hellscape of Auckland where it's like, here's the worst house in the suburb, and you ask for the cheapest house, right? So this one's $1.4 million.
Wow.
What? It's the secret's out that I say New Zealand and you guys say, oh nice, not where? Yeah. There's a lot more demand than supply these days.
Right.
We got Shania Twain, who bought an island between our North and South Island.
That don't impress me much.
How about if she had a private rocket pad? Because that's probably on the way.
Those damn hobbits, man. Ever since they filmed them over in your backyard, it screwed everything up.
This is true.
What's your show about?
So my show, Climactic, is to fill a gap. There's now 1.8 million podcasts. But I found a huge gap when I was looking for shows about climate change in Australia particularly, that talked to normal people about how they were engaging with climate and what they were doing about it, but also how they were feeling, how they're kind of getting through the existential terror spirals that start when you get engaged with the enormity of climate change. So my show is about normal people, what they do about climate change, how they feel about it, how they get through, and as we kind of speak to, hopefully in the title a bit, it's about climate, but it's also about just these somewhat climactic feeling times that, wherever you stand, you kind of know that there's we're at the culmination of a lot of things at the moment. The Industrial Revolution, we're all talking about the next revolution of work and whatever the economy is going to look like. But then a lot of us know that we're at some environmental limits here as well. So whatever way you slice it, we're at, final times for what was before, and we don't know what happens next.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And a lot of people see the unknown as fear. Like that's our instinct sometimes. Mm-hmm. We're fearful of it. Let's be honest. It's scary as shit when you actually learn the science. But I think it's great that you approach it from hey, listen, we're just regular people talking about this. Let's talk about it in regular terms. You told me a story on the phone the other day. What really triggered your passion for wanting to make this a topic of conversation in general?
Yeah, it was feeling alone in this space, and the reason why I felt alone was I came into the climate community. Like I've heard it said, climate movement, and I'm not really comfortable with that because I don't feel like really part of a movement. I'm a very, you had it right. I'm a normal, boring-sounding white dude from a pretty privileged middle-class background. I'm not a warrior in any happy or otherwise.
I think you're my hero. No.
And you're mine, Matt. So the biggest impediment to talking about this topic is that we all know how big the world is. We know how just vast the world is. And you travel, 1,500, 2,000 miles on a plane, you're like, wow, how could we human individuals ever change this massive thing? Like, it's insane to think about. And that's what, like, my dad always comes back to. He's like, the hubris, Mark, and your generation have of thinking that, we could change this world. I spent 2 years in a place where the evidence was unarguable that we'd changed the world and not for the better. So I was living in a small city called Suzhou, which is in a province called Jiangsu, which is kind of like China's Ohio. It's industrialized, but it's kind of post-industrial. Like, wherever you go, there's hilltops that used to have tops to the hills, but they've now been hilltop mining. So they've cut off the top of the hills and quarried down. And if you walk to the top of these hills, you look down into it looks like a volcano pit, but it's just been sucked clean of iron ore, coal.
Wow.
And so the city I was in, which was a small city of 6 million,
Quaint.
6 million.
Right.
And in the heart of this city, what was demonstrated by the effects of our impact on this, whether or not your dad believes you and I can, what was that?
Yeah, what happened after this level of industrialization, funnily enough, wasn't a happy homeostasis with nature. It was like something out of a Mad Max film or pick your apocalyptic movie of choice. You had multiple coal power plants right in the middle of the city that were operating. You had coal dust over everything. You had everyone wearing masks all the time, just, day or night, any time of the season as well, because I saw little kids coughing up black phlegm from the time they were 3 years old. It's just a normal thing there.
Jesus.
This kind of just devastation of look, the Chinese economic miracle certainly has lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, but it hasn't exactly given them blue skies. And there was parks you could go to in the city to see green grass, but you were not allowed to walk on it. There were signs up, do not walk on the grass, and guards actively, if you stood on the grass, they would come and tell you to get off of it.
Damn. I'll never look at my lawn the same.
Yeah.
No, for real.
You're like, I could never cut you.
Just grow. That's scary, man.
They keep talking about, we need to go back to coal. What the fuck?
It's just so easy to understand as a thing, right? It's, so here's the thought experiment, right? So coal, you can explain it to anyone, right? Here's a black lump, huge, high calorific content. It's got a lot of energy in it. You put it in a boiler, it burns. That burning boils water. You make steam. You can make stuff move with steam somehow. That's still a little steampunky to me. I don't understand how that works. And yet, the idea of powering something from the sun. So I've got this whole thing as soon as I got into climate change where it's do you guys who are burning coal, do you ever stop and think for a second, what is coal? It's 100 millions of years old fossilized trees? Why do you think that belongs in today's environment or today's atmosphere? The equation here doesn't make sense. If you're literally mining our deep history to burn to introduce in today's atmosphere, the chemistry here is not going to balance out very well.
Yeah, it's you need to keep warm, so you get your social security card and passport to burn in the fire.
Precisely. Yeah.
It's not that helpful.
Have you thought about burning money? So here's where my mindset was at one point, is I was willing to agree with certain amounts of science, but then there was that disconnect at a certain point. So if somebody, I remember, because I took a class on this, and somebody asked me, well, do you believe or do you agree that the burning of fossil fuels is harmful to our environment? Well, yeah, of course. Well, do you believe that when you do that, it releases greenhouse gases, which have a major impact on our environment, and they get trapped down below and the Earth's surface heats up? Well, yeah. Well, so then do you believe that what we've been doing for these decades, and especially during the Industrial Revolution, that we've heard it? And it's like, no, because the climate always changes. We go through these phases, it's just moody right now.
It's on its period. You got to just let it chill.
Yeah.
Man.
And the thing is, and I think a lot of people will agree with the science up to a point, and then it's like, no, but.
But we actually knew in the 70s that this was bad, and the information has been suppressed, and big businesses have known, but we're like trying to dismiss the fringe element who's concerned about the environment. And it's only until now when there's just like no denying that it's happening that we're like, oh yeah. It was Exxon that knew about climate change.
ExxonMobil. And you know what? I knew that. I was going to say that, but I didn't want to be wrong on the air for some stupid ass reason.
We don't want to
'Cause I'm
slander
always
the
wrong.
good people at Exxon.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, the fine folks at Exxon.
Rex, we love you.
Yeah. Rex Tillerson, you're my boy.
Yeah.
But but it's like, the politicians and shit who don't have to worry about nothing. Their rap is, fuck it. I mean,
I'll be dead.
Yeah, I'll be dead. And hell, even my children or grandchildren, let them worry about it because it doesn't affect me and mines. And if it does affect me and mines, we'll be fine because I'm a politician. I got it like that, and everything will be cool. Somebody else's problem. That's the problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. Because if it was something that they really, like some of these people really thought was going to affect them in their lifetime, I think you would see a very different tune.
Right.
But it's like, screw it, I'll be dead. And my kids, they'll be rich.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, Mark. Were you always a believer?
It was always a background thing for me, so I definitely wasn't raised in any kind of, climate-engaged way. My entire childhood, I was flying back and forth from the U.S. to New Zealand every year, having 2 summers a year. That's not something you do if your parents who are dragging you along for this are very concerned about the emissions from flying.
That's cool shit.
No, if anything, no, they were actually very aware. No, we didn't even have 2 winters a year to escape the ravages of hotter summers. We were chasing sun, in the process making the world hotter. Yeah, no, I had a very Rex Tillerson-esque childhood in hindsight. No, not at all. So it was for me like when Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth came out, I heard about it and I was like, that sounds bad. And like you'll find it, pretty much anyone who's involved now at some point they're like, that sounds bad. I'm sure someone will fix it. Man, when I'm an adult, it'll be great to hear how that's fixed now. Just like
Cue
the
me
ozone
throwing
hole.
garbage out the window.
Yeah, that's right.
I made a jet airplane that runs solely on aerosol hairspray.
Yeah.
So you were at least open to the idea that there's the science behind it. So you weren't like a straight up denier, because I denied it at one point. I think part of it is fear, is I didn't want to believe that this was true. And when Al Gore's film came out, I was like, this is a political move. He just wants attention. Man, bear, pig. Me and the South Park guys are all in the same boat. We all ate our words eventually. We really did.
So Al, after doing the film, started a group called the Climate Reality Project, and he's had, I think, about 60,000 people go through this training, and I got to go to it in Brisbane, in Australia, in 2019. And yeah, he got very publicly asked a few times, like, so how did you feel about that South Park episode? And it was the most wry, sardonic, shit-eating grin on his face when he was able to say, yeah, Trey and Matt called me and said, sorry, Al. And it was wonderful.
What arguments do you hear from the other side in your journey right now?
It's a great question. I don't engage with climate deniers at this point because they are either so few and far between, I just literally don't encounter any, or it's people more like my father who are still, they are not combative about their disbelief, but they're still, they're not credulous, or they don't want to be engaged with about this.
Are your parents in the U.S. or are they in New Zealand now?
So actually, a funny little aside, so my wife and I have just moved back to New Zealand. We were in Christchurch, our second biggest city here in New Zealand, and we were about to get out of quarantine on April 3rd, and I get a call from my dad just like the last week of March. He's meant to fly back to Seattle. He's going to leave the perfect COVID-free island paradise in New Zealand and go back to Seattle because the days are getting shorter and cold, and he wants to go back there. I'm like, okay. He's like, I've changed my flight to April 1st to go back to the States. I'm like, you're literally going to miss us getting out of quarantine by 3 days? He's like, yep. I'm like, this is not an April 1st joke. You're calling me to say you're flying back to the States. Nope, sure enough. So, so he's in the States right now.
Oh, wow.
I feel exactly what you're saying, and there are some people with a lot of the topics we talk about, but my father actually specifically, who even with the vaccine, they're saying, well, the jury's still out on the science. I'm like, what jury of morons are you referring to? Well, the
jury of my peers or your peers?
Yeah, the two squirrels slinging shit at each other. Yes, the jury is out. You're right. And when it comes to climate change, it's the same kind of thing. And it's like, I don't know that you should be allowed to, operate heavy machinery, own a house, do any of these things if you cannot, do you believe in gravity? Jump off the cliff, see if Jesus catches you, whatever. That's what I hear a lot from people on the other side. It used to be straight up, they're full of shit. Now it's, well, the jury's still out on that.
See if Jesus catches you.
Here in Christ Church, if you jump off a cliff, Jesus might catch you.
Give it a shot. Oh, he wasn't the one.
He said, I'll catch you next time, brother.
If she drowns, she's not a witch.
Yeah. Yeah. LeJohn, every once in a while, we get LeJohn with a good little one-liner.
That got me.
So let's talk a little bit about the science. I think because what I really enjoy, again, is that you look at it from the human element and kind of making it digestible on a, person-to-person basis. But in your research and understanding of it, what does our future look like, status quo, if we do nothing to ebb back our destruction of the earth?
Thank you for the framing that as well. I wanted to say up front that, in no way am I a scientist on this at all. I was very lucky to go and be trained, basically to give Al's slideshow. Sorry, Mr. Gore's slideshow. So I work in a customer support role in my day job, which is in podcasting, and explaining how podcasting works is actually harder than explaining how climate change works. So I'm lucky there.
That's our next episode. We got to figure that shit out finally.
Well, it's all changed as of last week. So.
Yeah, exactly.
So the old metaphor for climate change is imagine the Earth and it's got a blanket wrapped around it, and the blanket is our atmosphere, and we're making that blanket thicker, or we're adding an extra blanket, and we're retaining more heat. But that kind of leads itself to this, we're a frog in a pot of water, and we're turning up the dial on that pot, and the flames are getting hotter. But the process of the Earth getting hotter isn't a gradual one. It's not a uniform one. So what we're seeing now, these polar vortexes across the northern hemisphere, they're happening down here in the southern hemisphere as well. We're seeing a weakening jet stream. We're basically seeing all the systems, like the Earth systems, that we've relied on in this period of real climate stability for a 10,000-year span, the whole of human history, essentially, is changing. Those bonds are weakening. Those systems are falling apart. A week ago, I woke up to read an article that a third of France's wine crop in the Normandy region was destroyed because of a late frost. It happened 2 weeks after things started to warm up there, and then a late frost came through, destroyed everything. And you're just that's our present, much less our future. So if you like Pacific Rim movies, congratulations. It's like kaiju attacks now, all the bloody time.
Fuck, man. That's that is some frustrating shit. Because, all right, smoking cigarettes is bad for you. If you keep on smoking cigarettes, chances are you'll develop these type of cancers and everything as a result of smoking cigarettes. If you're 30 years old and you get the effects of smoking cigarettes, the bad effects, the cancers and everything else, then you're like, damn, I was young and I got fucked up from smoking cigarettes. If you're 70, it's like, I fucking lived my life, whatever. It was cool. I don't give a fuck. Is there any hope? Because what can we do to let us know that, listen, this is a fucking problem right now, and we need to be taking care of it right now, and not for our children. Oh, they'll take care of it. They'll be fine. Our grandchildren, oh, they take care of it. They'll be fine, whatever. If you can't convince that smoker, listen, man, this is a problem right now. Mm-hmm. Is there any convincing us that this shit needs to be handled right now?
That's a really good metaphor to use, the smoking example. We've had the warnings on the cigarette packets now for, as you say, we've known for 50 years. We've actually known since the 1850s. We know what CO2 did 150 years ago. the warnings have been there on society. They've just not been loud enough. They haven't been proactive. It's like the state governor being like, okay, so I know cigarettes are bad, right? But we get a lot of tax revenue from selling cigarettes because we slapped some taxes on it. So I'm not going to ban cigarettes, but I'm just going to insist, as the public outcry increases, we'll have a black and white warning label, and then we'll have a color one, and then it's going to be super bloody graphic. And over time, less and less people will smoke, but we're keeping up our amount of tax revenue, and we'll be able to help out the people who've been affected. But this is, this is the planet that's been smoking the cigarettes, not us.
I was going to say, it's not, I decide to smoke cigarettes and live with the consequences. It's, I'm going to smoke cigarettes and then throw the still lit cigarette at your house and burn it down.
That's a strong cigarette. It might be a cigar.
Yeah. You're probably familiar with like what happened in Flint, Michigan. It wasn't that they didn't have the information, is that they did everything to stop people from finding out, because we can talk about politics all day, but it's what runs politics, which is money.
Yep.
Which money is green, so you would think that they would be green.
Yeah.
China's 100 renminbi, 100 yuan note is red. And so they've got all these rap songs now about, that red money and like the stacks of like red bills. But at least it's honest. It's blood money.
Yeah.
But, I'd love to just quickly speak to LeJohn's question about hope. And I'm like one of these kids, was raised on sci-fi, and I love apocalyptic shit. And I'm always like, I'm a real pessimist of the head and an optimist of the heart, which is a thing you'll hear quite a bit in the climate space, where like, as soon as you start talking about the science, you're like, okay, yeah, things are bad, and that is so undeniable, and things are going to get worse. Yes, there's just baked in mechanisms now that, like, positive feedback loops, things will get worse. Well, I'm a realist about human adaptability. Like, in any sci-fi story, right? Like Waterworld looked pretty shit, and yet there's tons of people still living on, like, random rafts and stuff.
Still smoking.
Still smoking. Yeah, Dennis Hopper just, like, I'm not sure where he got his packs from. But
Not
they went
one
through a lot
wet
on that
cigarette.
set. That's right. And so no matter how shit your settings is, there's still people there, right? And they might be, savage, barbarian, fucked up people, but there's people. And we've had it hard. I'll say one thing, like, maybe it's not like a racial thing. It's not like humans, the human race sometimes has had it hard. Not anyone who looks like me lately, but like we've had it hard, and we've gotten through. And I think, my kids and kids and stuff, if they're going to be barbaric raiders on the road, more power to them.
What are some skills that you are planning on teaching your future generations? Are you planning on teaching them like how to save the earth or how to live in the post-apocalyptic situation?
Both.
How to swim, I think, should be number one.
I will tell my children, do not leave New Zealand.
Yeah.
This is where the bunkers are being built. Not to let that cat out of the bag, but...
They can go live in the Shire, Yeah.
Yeah. That was really just a promotional campaign for our bunker industry.
So wait, tell me about the bunkers.
Y'all over there in America have this nice cottage industry of former missile silos being turned into gated underground communities. In New Zealand, we have no missile silos that anyone knows about, so probably. But there is a bunch of sort of closed off communities, places with streams, running water, private solar farms being built that are essentially move over, gated community of McMansions. Here's your gated community of off-the-grid, self-reliant farmsteads.
Oh, cool.
And those are currently being built and occupied here.
And are those are the people living there like residents of New Zealand, or are they like rich people from America and like Saudi Arabia coming in?
Precisely.
Oh,
yes.
great.
A great example. We've already talked about Shania Twain. I'm going to be on someone's hit list for saying how it is here in the 51st state.
I'm glad we got to meet you first. Yeah.
I think New Zealand's going to beat Puerto Rico and DC to statehood by forcible annexation, if not voluntary means.
Oh, wow.
But we're basically like Vermont, Rhode Island, New Zealand. Just one if I can. We talked about Shania. You guys know about Peter Thiel in New Zealand?
I know that he's a PayPal guy and the Venmo guy.
He's now a New Zealand citizen as of a couple of years ago, despite not meeting the residency requirements. So that's fun that he bought citizenship.
Yeah, that's
I think
cool.
we got a school out of it, so that's cool. Like, We do teach like bush survival skills in our schools.
Oh,
so
sweet.
That's good.
So you guys are pro Second Amendment, right? I'm just kidding.
Well, like it was actually a huge thing down here that a lot of guns got taken away in a buyback after the Christchurch shooting a couple of years ago, the mosque shooting.
And that's the whole thing. Like New Zealand is on top of that shit.
When stuff happens, we talk about the cause. Yeah.
What about if a bear attacks your kids? You know, that whole thing. But you guys actually live in the wilderness in certain areas of the country, and you're still way more progressive than us somehow.
Well, luckily, due to New Zealand's unique ecology and ecosystem, because we were like a little island stranded away from any other landmass for millennia, we don't have mammals natively here. We've only got birds.
Wow.
So, like, birds fill like every ecological niche, including a type of parrot that essentially acts as like a badger.
I thought you had a marsupial. Don't you have marsupials?
No, the only marsupials we've got were introduced from Australia, like the possum.
Gotcha. And are mammals there now?
Unfortunately so, and causing massive havoc and bedlam.
Wow.
Yeah, they're buying citizenship.
Yeah.
Vermin, rodents, yes.
So in New Zealand, you're experiencing all of the issues with climate change. Is that maybe why people there are a little more concerned than the people in America, where we're just like shut in our houses looking at screens?
That's a really good point, that there probably is there's more awareness that the natural world around you can change than we are changing it, because yes, we've seen it in New Zealand within the space of 2 generations. You know, an introduced species is reshaping how the country looks. And then like something invisible like greenhouse gas emissions, we can see the effect and we can therefore understand the cause a bit better. Whereas I guess in America, you guys have kind of, you know, the post-World War II reality is pretty much the same as it is in 2020 in large parts of the country. Like, the refineries were built, the factories were built. Detroit was Detroit for 80 years.
What I wanted to ask was, what can everybody do today, like starting now, to reduce our carbon footprint? We look at this, holy shit, this is an unsolvable problem.
Yep.
But no, it's not. There are some things that are irreversible, but there are things that if we just all did these simple minor things, holy shit, we could slow this down exponentially. So what can we all do?
The biggest thing you can do in America is not to get all straight up political straight away, but it's support what's happening with this new administration. It's hugely important to the rest of the world to see that America is moving and not holding back movement on climate change. Don't be paralyzed in your own life by trying to be perfect or trying to do too much. Do not over-index on personal sustainability. I've got many friends who are zero plastic, zero waste. They don't travel, and I love them, but their impact on their community is minimal because everyone else looks at them like, how do you do it? And they're like, oh, it's a full-time job. I go everywhere with a bag full of containers, and I am a forager, and I'm a freegan. I'll take you to all the best dumpsters. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Let's go to McDonald's. No one's personal circle is that big or that convincible that if you are the Statue of Liberty for sustainability, if you're this beacon on a hill, you're not on a hill. You're in a gully, and like, vote for people and like get involved in other civic issues that are intersectional with climate. Racial justice is climate justice. The entire climate justice movement is so intertwined in every other facet of the world. And like, if we fix climate change within a generation or two,
we can ruin it again.
But yeah, climate is the result of humanity's inability to live well within our ecological bounds and also well with each other. And if we don't get better at treating each other better, then we can't treat the world better. And we just have to kind of just devote all your efforts, I guess, to helping each other do better in any little thing you can, and do something you want to do.
Gotcha. Straight up, yes or no? Do you have hope?
Yes.
I'll always believe that there's more good in the world than evil. So therefore, I want to believe that there's more people who are proactive towards this cause than those who are not. So I'm glad that you have hope, because that gives me hope, because I won't lie that I've been like, man, fuck this. What I'm doing isn't enough. And there's so many fools who aren't doing enough or anything at all. So how can this actually work? But for somebody who has so much knowledge and experience on it to say they have hope, that gives me hope. Good.
And hope's contagious.
Yes.
You having hope gives me more hope.
See, I'm a big believer in chaos theory. So while the science is there that we're screwed, I love the idea that you just don't know what might change and what might happen to get us out of this. But I will say this from my opinion, from what I've read. If I were to have kids starting this year, my grandchildren are either going to live in the Mad Max style world or have to move off planet. I just don't see a normal existence for that generation.
Fuck you, Matt. We have hope.
I'm not saying I don't have hope. I said status quo. My hope is that people will start to change their minds and hearts and go, holy shit, I have to look beyond myself because we've been the me generation for too long. Oh, Lindsay really wants to say something.
No, I just sit over here thinking because for me, this is what keeps me up at night. I get very dark when it gets later and later in the evening. I don't know why, but I feel like it's not only like a crisis to the world's existence and our existence as a species, but it's a mental health crisis because there's just so much unknown in the fact that we really have so little to control. And I know you listened to our podcast on the infertility. It also then weighs on our ability to decide whether we're going to have children or not, because then there's that whole ethical thing that's like, are we going to bring another child into the world that is potentially dying, right? And I have hope. I think at the bottom of it, I have so much hope, but it's so heavy. And there's such a responsibility if you actually enter into that space to think about it and to really think about what can we do to change.
Lindsay, it's absolutely huge and real thing that, this has been the year that we've realized that mental health, COVID's been a great kind of wake-up call for a lot of us, that we're a lot more fragile than we thought we were. So if any of this is affecting anyone, please do speak to someone. And the great thing about climate is that even a couple of years ago, if you went to see a psychologist and said, I'm really concerned that the earth is dying, they might be like, well, that's a delusion of grandeur kind of catastrophizing issue.
Is the earth in the room with us right now?
I can't seem to get away from it. It follows me wherever I go. That's what Elon's trying to get away from, I guess. It's getting into the psychologist kind of the handbooks, and like it's now diagnosable. Some psychologists know words like solastalgia, which is the sadness you feel at the passing of not people or not a generation, but of an ecosystem, our ecosystem, the only one we know.
And that's a real thing, because when you start looking at the endangered species list and the things that will never exist again, some of it is Darwin. It's kind of like this was not meant to survive, or it couldn't because of X, Y, or Z, like the dinosaurs. And some of it is, when you really look at it, oh shit, this is all like within the last 100 years. Like we did this. Like we as a species, just out of selfishness, not out of malice, decided to act however we wanted and killed this animal that we will never see again, killed this crop that we could never see again. And now we're doing it to the entire planet. I don't know if there's anything more selfish. Somebody who's emotionally intelligent and healthy can say, my actions do this to you. Let's talk through that and figure out how I can fix it. Instead, we're in this abusive relationship where like Mother Earth has been using the safe word for the last 45 minutes, and we're still beating the shit out of her.
That's a really good point. A lot of the environmental activists I know, people who are part of this group called Extinction Rebellion, and others who, lock themselves onto barrels to block traffic, who get mad at everyday people for being part of systems that are causing irrevocable damage. I don't attribute malice to people just doing the most convenient thing. I think it's like that's getting mad at water for finding the easiest course to travel. Like, we do that as people. We conserve our energy by going for the easiest route. We go shopping and buy the cheapest thing. Like, things are changing. We have to be grateful for the beauty we get to experience that future generations won't have, but they're also going to get a world where, wow, they're actually going to be aware of this. They know that humans changed the entire Earth in the past, and that means they have the power to change it again, which is somewhat powerful.
That's a damn good point, man. That's straight up power to the people for real.
Yeah,
that's exactly what that is. I love that.
Is, we need to give them the opportunity to be able to make changes, because there will come a point where some of these things cannot be undone. There's still some things that we can do beyond just ebbing it back or slowing it down. But I hope that we get the chance to do that, LeJohn. I hope that your kids and their kids get a chance to do that and not be going, that goddamn LeJohn and Matt, those pieces of shit.
It really feels like we went there.
Oh, shit.
Hey.
So where can people find you and your content?
Yeah, well, I've actually sent through some links to some fantastic climate content that will make you smile, that will give you a laugh, because, climactic might not be it. It's very, it's climate change with an Australian accent, except for mine. So it's Climactic, CLIMACTIC.fm, or check out the other stuff, which might be in the show notes, which is like some really good climate comedy stuff, which does exist. And I know you like to, deliver your heartbreaking, head-cracking stuff with a dose of laughter whenever you can.
Absolutely.
So your listeners might appreciate it.
I'm sure that climate change scientists have a great sense of humor, because if you didn't, holy crap, how would you even make it?
A lot of crying.
Sounds about right.
Sir, we cannot thank you enough, especially because you're all the way in New Zealand at a big time change. So hopefully this was convenient enough for you time-wise. And hopefully you enjoyed it, because I can tell you I learned a lot. And this was just such an important and awesome conversation. And thank you for doing what you do, because you personalize an issue that so many people get scared away from because they don't feel smart enough, or they feel like you're going to push politics on them. And that's not what it is.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate the opportunity.
I meant when I said the fact that you have hope towards all this, and with your knowledge and experience in it all, that gives me hope, and that makes me.
So I hope you weren't lying.
Fact checker. No, if I can deliver one final pop culture reference, to go back to Pacific Rim, when the kaiju, the big ass monsters are attacking you, don't be one of the screaming idiots on the ground, right? Be one of those people up in the robots doing something and fighting back.
Yeah. See, fuck yeah, hell yeah.
Right. I'll invest in robots.
You know what I liken it to? So I'm a big Superman nerd. On his home planet of Krypton, his dad, Jor-El, had been telling everybody in the committee, and he's like, guys, our planet is dying. If we do not figure something out, we're all doomed. And they're all like, oh, you're worrying too much, and you need to stop being such a fear monger. So what did he do? He sent his only son to Earth, Superman, and then Krypton explodes. I feel like we're at, sadly, the beginning of a Superman movie, which should excite me, but instead it scares the shit out of me. So I hope somebody starts listening to that son of a bitch.
But we are the Supermen, right?
No.
We're the people. We're the people who's gonna save this bitch.
No, I think your kid is Superman. We're gonna send his ass off to Mars while the rest of us explode, Marlon Brando style.
We got a hot topic talking about the Earth and how hot it is. But since we're on this hot topic, we might as well go ahead and talk about somebody who's got some hot music. And our musical highlight of this episode is Phil Kolis of Air Bloom. I reached out to this young man, and he was excited, and I'm beyond excited to have him featured on this episode. Got some great stuff. Phil Kolis is a guitarist, keyboard player, and lyricist from the Lower Michigan area. His music draws inspiration from new age, alternative rock, guitar, instrumental, and soundscape. I freaking love soundscapes. I usually go to sleep to soundscapes. It chills me out for real. Seriously, that's a little John Woods tidbit there. There's a progressive touch of ambiance to his music, crossing several genres, but always remains grounded in the sound of the present day. That's what's so awesome about his stuff. His 6-song debut EP, Bright Nights, Light Years, is an embodiment of 2020 and the pandemic. Seriously, in sound and lyrics, and it's available on all of major streaming platforms and services. So please check him out, airbloommusic.com, on Twitter at airbloom_music, and Facebook at airbloommusic.
Yeah, the moniker Air Bloom might be just the most relevant name for this topic because we're talking about things that we might not get to enjoy so much in the future. I started watching the show Afterlife with Ricky Gervais, and there was a wonderful quote that plays into this topic so well, which was, "A society grows great when old men plant trees whose shades they know they shall never sit in." And that's what we're really getting to the core of here in this discussion. So in this next segment, Lindsay and I sat down with somebody from India who is a student and who's been researching and dedicating his life to figuring out climate change and what we can do. Because of the time difference, we weren't able to get the whole crew for this one. He's been studying this problem since 2018 in Sage University in India. And he's also the host of his own podcast, Talking Climate Change with Yash Negi. And thanks for joining us, Yash.
Thank you so much, Matt, for having me.
What do we have? Almost a 10-hour time difference between where we're at and where you're at, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Basically, India has only one time zone, while US has multiple time zones.
Yeah, we make it confusing for people. And then we have daylight time and standard time. We like to really mess with you.
Yeah.
Give our audience a quick snapshot of who you are.
My name is Yash Negi, and I am 21 years old, and I am pursuing computer science. And right now I am in third year. So basically, my interest developed from 2018 when I was pursuing engineering. So I thought that engineering is like something that which we all can do. But what we can't do is like save the planet, right? So there were only few people on my university that who were actually interested in solving the climate crisis, right? So the matter is, there is a difference between talking and taking action. My people were believed in talking, not taking action, because they were afraid. So what they can do, if they succeed or not. So then I decided that, okay, so I will be on my own. So then I started my own channel, which is Talking Climate Change with Yash Negi. And then I individually explain each and every single topic in depth, which is associated with climate change.
Yeah, and you and I talked a little bit about how there's, to an extent, some denial of the science,
Absolutely,
and it's across the board, I think, in every country. And that is sadly relevant when we're talking about science and denial and the huge problems that are happening in your country right now with COVID and the lack of resources, access to the vaccine. So we truly, truly hope that you are staying safe and well, watching from afar some of the issues that are going on over there right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So many countries, including Germany, Russia, and the United States, are helping us out in terms of vaccine and providing raw materials so that we can make vaccines of our own in our own country.
Yeah, for those who aren't as up to date on it, what we were watching in the news is they are actually running out of space in the crematoriums.
Yeah, you are right. Absolutely, you are right. They are not running out of oxygen, but they are also running out of bed and space as well.
Yeah, they're running out of
We don't have
everything.
anything right now.
Right.
Yeah, we don't have anything right now.
And that juxtaposed to reading somebody's Facebook post about how this vaccine is still a hoax, or how COVID, isn't as dangerous as they're making it out to be. And then watching that happen is like a slap in the face, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is a very huge and tight slap in the face, because the people who said that it is not real, it is a complete hoax, and we don't have anything like coronavirus.
Yeah.
Now see the condition. We are having 400,000 cases per day.
Yeah, exactly. And we talked about this earlier in the show, that a lot of times we focus on our problems from the American viewpoint and only the American viewpoint. And because, especially in America, with the freedom of speech, which is a beautiful, great thing, a lot of people try to take advantage of it by putting out misinformation and even disinformation and getting away with it. Saying, well, I heard so-and-so say that, the vaccine is bad for you, so you shouldn't take it, and I'm going to live on that stance. And it's like, no, you're not allowed your own facts and science. I'm sorry, you're not. So getting into climate change, why did you decide that this was such an important topic to dedicate your time to?
First of all, very interesting question, I would love to answer that. When I was in school, during my school age, I was very attracted towards the nature, right? But I didn't know the meaning of climate change. So when I entered the college, I decided that, okay, I will pursue my dream, that is to work for Microsoft in the United States. So what I decided, okay, I will work harder to achieve my dream. Then what happened is one day I was actually going through Leonardo DiCaprio's Instagram page. The only thing I was seeing at that time was environment, climate crisis, climate change. I didn't see even a single picture of that man, even a single picture. Then I scrolled up back on the top of the Instagram page, and I read the bio. The bio was written as, and I quote, actor and environmentalist, and his entire Twitter account as well as Instagram account as well, entirely dedicated towards climate change. Then I started researching, and then I thought, okay, this is some of the serious threat to ever face mankind, and someone has to say something about it. So in my college, there was not even a single student who actually know what is happening. So it was very quite fascinating for me that people are not only denying the climate science, but they are not aware of what is happening around the world as well. So just like you see about California wildfire, right? Very dangerous, very harmful. It destroyed the ecosystem, the biodiversity of the species, right?
Yeah.
These things very hit me hard. And then I thought that, coding isn't enough. We have to do something, and someone has to do something. We just can't sit and think that, okay, someone will come and fight for climate change for us. It is not going to happen. It is the duty of each and every single individual. Because what I sincerely believe is that if we didn't do something, right, it would be a complete catastrophic disaster, not for one particular country, but for the entire planet.
Yes, why do you think that people are either so undereducated about this or they just don't do the research? Why are so many people either unaware or uninformed?
Because they're not reading Leonardo DiCaprio's Twitter feed. He's king of the world and he's king of Twitter.
So actually people, they are focused on politics. In this country, especially the youth is focused on politics. My main agenda is to make sure that to tell each and every single one that why climate science is important and why we should not deny it in the first place, right? Let us put politics aside. We have to focus our issue main on climate change, because there is not even a single country which is untouched by climate change, right? Every single country is facing some or the other issues related to climate change, and still government is not doing enough to get it right.
It's funny because you and I were talking about it and we're like, well, there has to be some distinct differences between our countries and their approach. But the thing that is very much tied to each other in India and America is that they have turned climate change into a political issue.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct.
And so, in America, which you said for the past 5 years, you've been studying American politics, which I said is probably either the best or the worst time to jump into it, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
It's a good way to look at, I think, mental health as well. But as far as climate change, here it is the conservatives who are saying a lot of times that it's the left trying to scare you. It's fear mongering. It's not as bad. Yeah, even when the conservative scientists come back with the studies and say, no, this is happening, they're finding ways to either make it like put it out of mind, because we need to invest in more coal refineries, which is just mind-blowing.
And oil
and all of these things that are killing our environment. Or they're just trying to say that it's a hoax, it's fear-mongering, it's all of these things. Is it a party system issue in India as well?
It is that issue, right? So right now, we all are focused on one issue, that is COVID. The crisis is huge. And first of all, we have to get rid of COVID. Because we didn't expect it here in India that we would surpass like this. The one of the most worst hit countries by COVID right now. Even my friends, even my political friends, I discuss with them about climate science. Some of people, they deny the climate science. Some doesn't agree, and some does. And the remaining people don't want to listen about climate change because they found it very boring topic. If climate change is happening, there would be some person or some government who is actually doing something. So we shouldn't be worrying about that. We shouldn't be worrying about climate change because someone on the other side of the planet is doing something on climate change. So it is a very quite heavy percentage of chance that, okay, we will save this planet. So why should we worried if someone is actually working on climate change? If
you can tell me who that is, that would be really interesting to know.
They're just waiting on Leonardo DiCaprio to just fix all of our problems.
Yeah. You can say that. So there was a song. I'm not sure if you heard it by Little Dicky, Earth. The title of that song was Earth. So in that last clip, he said that, actually you should ask Leonardo DiCaprio, who actually knows more about the Earth than anybody else. So if do aliens come into our planet, we should send Leo as a rep. Maybe he would come bring in profits along the way.
Take us to your leader and you're like, well, here's the Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
So, there's been people who've made the arguments over the last few years, which I have a hard time with because I grew up reading comics. So I love superheroes. I've always been very much into it. But somebody was like, what's dangerous about our superhero culture is we're constantly waiting for somebody to come save us. We're constantly going, well, we can't possibly fix racial injustice or climate change or any of these major issues. Hopefully Superman will show up at some point. And we have to wrap our heads around the fact that there is no Superman. And no, Leonardo DiCaprio does not know more about the Earth than the scientist.
Yeah.
I think it's great when people with a platform use their voice for positive change. And I think Leonardo DiCaprio is a great example of that. But no, he's not an end-all be-all by any means.
Yeah.
Even our scientists are asking us, please start caring. Please start looking at this. So have you noticed in doing your own podcast a positive impact?
So when I receive email from different parts of the world, they are saying that, okay, so we are now more interested in understanding what this thing means, why does it matter, and how we as an individual can contribute. So there was one email that I received from a friend from Germany. He was like, okay, so you helped me. And your episode number 26 on carbon leakage helped me a lot in preparing a technical paper on climate change. So this type of email I receive, twice a month, sometimes thrice a month. So it makes me feel happy that, okay, my voice is impacting somewhere, not a large audience, but a smaller audience as well. I'm not looking to target a particular audience, right? Even those emails are worth it for me. They are like, okay, you are helping us a lot, not only in our project, but now we are understanding even more things about climate change, because what you are doing is you are covering individual topic.
I think it's so important that you do cover each topic individually, because climate change as a whole topic is so overwhelming for especially those who we just don't know enough about it. There are all of these different facets of it. So I think that has to be helpful, especially for those who are researching. And then for people like us who aren't researching, but we're worried and we don't really have all the facts.
Yeah.
What should each listener right now start doing today to help with the effort?
Yeah. So look, planting trees isn't the only solution to fight against climate change, right? You can plant trees, no issue in that. But actually what we need is innovation across different sectors of emissions. Right? Either you work for energy, there is clean energy, renewable energy, green hydrogen as well, even the carbon neutral thing. So we can work on multiple things. So planting trees isn't the only option, because what people think is like, okay, we will plant a tree, we are done. We have done our duty.
Problem solved.
Right. Planet solved. So the thing is, what we need is to work in different sectors of emission to help fight climate change. And it is not a step of 1 year or 2 years. It will take at least a decade, because we as a planet have to come together to solve our one home, because we don't have any other planet to survive, to be very honest. Even the Elon Musk says that, okay, we will go to Mars, we will colonize Mars. And if it does happen, the entire population of Earth can't go to Mars, right?
We talked about that earlier. It'll be a classist lottery. It'll be the richest people can afford to buy a ticket and the rest of us are going to be stuck here.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of post-apocalyptic films and stories written about stuff like that, and it's scary. And moving to another planet that also lacks the resources and the atmosphere and the things we need. We're just building a fake environment when we have an organic, beautiful one that, we were meant to be on, however you want to look at it, and we're just tossing it aside. And man, there is nothing more American than that.
Mm-hmm.
Just the wastefulness. It's like, well, crumble it up, throw it away, and let's move on to the next. I don't think the human species, at least in any kind of bulk, is going to outlive this planet somewhere else. I just don't
Absolutely.
I don't think we're there yet. And that's what's scary. As a funny aside, you shared with me offline that you have an affinity for American politics, and what just tickled me to death. that you named your two favorite presidents, which were Barack Obama and Ronald Reagan. And I mean,
Huge fan of President Ronald Reagan.
I think they're both very good men. I think Ronald Reagan was a good person. We learned about that he had like a chief appreciation officer. So anyone who did anything with the president or met with them, he went out of his way to show gratitude and appreciation.
Absolutely.
And even if the listener personally disagrees with his politics, he was a good man. He was in power in a divisive time and I think made some bad decisions, but he was a good person. And Barack Obama is the same thing. He's a good man with a big heart. But I just found it really funny because if you came to America, I don't know that you might be able to find one or two people who agree that those are two great presidents because we're so divided.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why do you love Ronald Reagan so much?
You know, you already answered for me that question already. So I like his nature, first of all. I like the way he treated the people. And I have also signed up for the newsletter of Presidential Ronald Reagan Presidential Library as well. So it is my dream to visit that library someday, to have that feel of the politics at that time during his administration.
That is so funny to me, but at the same time, I find that a beautiful thing because that means that you have an affinity for our politics without buying into them. Because somebody who's so dedicated to science and learning and all of these things sometimes doesn't fall into that bucket. I think it's a great thing when you can have an appreciation for something without buying in wholesale, if you will. So that's great. I wish more people could think like that. I wish more people could say, hey, listen, I didn't vote for Obama, but I think he is a good person. I think he led the best that he could. I think Joe Biden's doing the best job that he can. It's too much of a, no, screw him. He's a Democrat, so he's evil.
Yeah.
Right.
Look, I wouldn't say not every, but each and every human being is not perfect.
None of us.
In any of the way. Right. Whether it is the president of the United States or prime minister of the India or prime minister of some other country.
It's true.
People aren't perfect.
Amen to that.
But here's what I'll say to that is, I think some people use that as a crutch to say, well, this is just how I am. No, we should still strive to be better. And especially when it comes to climate change, the idea of, hey, I'm not perfect, so I'm just going to set a tire factory on fire. No, you need to make positive steps towards trying to do something good. We need to leave a positive impact on this world before we leave it. So the next generation has a chance because as of right now, I'm concerned that the next generations will not.
I think there's a little bit of a throwback, too, to one of our earlier episodes. It was actually Michael Madgar said, I just don't understand this generation of older people who don't really seem to care whether they leave a sustainable planet or environment behind for the people that had kids and raised them. It's like they don't really care. It's more like, well, what impacts me? Later on down the road, I won't be here, so I won't care. And for me, I'm terrified sometimes to bring a child into this world because I don't know what type of world is going to be there for them. And there's a sense of responsibility internally in me that, am I bringing someone into a world that's doomed? And so do you have hope? Like, should we have hope for being able to combat this and slow it down and make things better?
Yeah, we should have hope. Until and unless I am alive, we should have hope. Because I won't let anything destroy this planet. Right now, we are at a crisis, and it is not a small crisis. It is a very big crisis. And each and every single country is facing this crisis. Alone, India can't fix problem. Alone, United States can't fix problem. We have to come together as a single unified mission that, okay, each and every single country is now working together to fight climate change. Let us put our politics aside. Let us work together. We can even achieve impossible things. That is what I believe.
Yash, what you just said hit the nail on the head. We need to not only put politics aside, but we need to start thinking as a planet. And there has been a huge push in America against that. Our former president pulled us out of the Paris Accords. When Joe Biden was running, they kept the scare tactic dog whistle term was globalist, and it's all this, oh, he's a globalist.
Yeah.
Yes, our planet beyond the borders of America matters. It matters. It's like if you're on an NBA team and you join together to help a bigger cause. It's not like I'm hoping this team beats us this year. No, I mean, as Americans, competition is still good. You still want to be the best. You still want to try to outdo your competition in the markets and in this place. But there will be no place to compete if the arena burns to the ground.
There are no winners.
There will be all losers. And so we have to, people using the term globalist, people complaining about teaming up with other countries, you are damning your children and your grandchildren to either death, living out in the middle of space with all artificial components and why? You know, the only people who benefit from this are the people who are alive right now and maybe for the next couple of decades in the fossil fuel industries. And that's it. You are just putting money into their pockets to essentially kill you. So this isn't against the person who's in denial. It's against the people who are trying to tell them and brainwash them into saying they just want to hurt you and your family. No, they're trying to save you and your family. I wish people would think outside the box, think for themselves a little bit and do some research. That's all. If you do a little bit of research from credible sources, you're going to find what we've all been saying for a while.
Yeah. So I really agree with you in this point. Look, I'm not saying you to go into an extreme level of research. What I'm saying is at least do that type of research that you know actually what is happening. What is climate change, why it is happening, and why it is important for us and for this generation to act, right? So what I told my friends at my age, I tell them that I'm not telling you to do extreme level of research. Just do a basic level of research and know the basic idea of the climate science. After that, you make a judgment. I'm not saying it. Make a judgment, but only after considering all the fact.
Read a damn book.
Well, and that's the point of your podcast, right? You could even go and listen to Yash's podcast where he tackles different facets of climate change. So that's pretty easy to just sit down and listen to a podcast for a little bit.
We've spoken a little bit in the theoretical and the generic you. What can we do? What can the people in this room right now, what can we do to help in your efforts, your personal efforts with getting the word out?
The big impact requires a small step. We really need to take small steps because that small steps will contribute towards a large impact. So the small steps is like first is planting trees, but it is not going to do enough. Second thing is like shift towards electric vehicle so that you are producing less and less carbon. I'm very happy to say like Tesla is doing a very phenomenal work in the United States. And actually people are purchasing Tesla. And many people doesn't know after purchasing Tesla is that they are actually contributing towards the planet.
I think one of the better things that came out of Tesla in the last couple of years is a more consumer level, affordable car. It's kind of like eating healthy. Eating healthy is super expensive, but man, you can get some crap, just pure garbage for $2. So if we really want to make a difference, the people who have the power and the money and the resources need to make it affordable for the average person.
Absolutely. So that each and every household have a solar panel, which will eventually save their electricity bill.
Yep. Yeah, because guess what, guys? If we destroy this planet, money will not matter.
No.
Money will mean nothing.
Nature is very powerful.
Yeah.
Nature is very powerful. If you provoke nature won't say that, okay, so if you have so much of money, okay, we won't do anything to you. In front of nature's power, no world leader could stand.
The point is you have hope. You give other people hope. And I hope that you continue to do what you've been doing in such a great way. So where can people find you and listen to you?
So my podcast is available in Google Podcast, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts as well. And you can even directly search my podcast name on Google. And you can connect me on Twitter as well, @real Yash Negi.
You're also on Facebook and Instagram?
Yeah, I am on all the social media, trying my best to make sure that each and every single one knows what is climate change, even if they deny climate change.
Those are the best people to approach, honestly. So what you're doing makes a lot of sense.
That is the power of social media, right? Mm-hmm. That is the power of social media.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Yash. We really, really appreciate it. This has been a great conversation.
I should say thanks to you for reaching me out in the first place. It is a greatest honor. It is my first collaboration, I hope, of many.
Yes.
All right, so What'd you learn?
I love the hope, man. I love the hope that he provided. Like I said, with somebody who has experience and knowledge on the subject as deep as that one, and to have the kind of hope that he has created hope, has inspired more hope, has energized the hope that I either had very little of or had it all. And that means a lot to me, because this is a serious thing, man. And it shouldn't just be pushed down to the generations after us and say, hey, deal with it because, we fucked it up, so go ahead and fix it. But the hope that he has in regards to what we're doing now that actually could be a benefit towards this, to solving this stuff, that means a lot to me. That's good.
Yeah, I'll say the one thing that Mark said that I guess I hadn't thought of is when you do have the people, we've all seen, like, we only have 1 can of garbage per year. We turn our old milk cartons into bird feeders and stuff like that. And he's like, hey, man, I think that's great that you're doing that. But what little impact you make to your larger community, let's not deter them. But his point, I think, was all you're doing is making it seem weird and unattainable to lessen your carbon footprint. And I thought that was actually, I was like, wow, that actually makes a lot of sense.
What I got from that is, like, don't break your back over it. Do what you can, because, like, if you're dieting and you fast forever, you're not going to be able to make it. Like,
I feel like that was a dig at me.
No, but if it's like everything's in moderation, you need to be able to sustain it.
Yeah. And so I think the important thing is to remember that, like, we can fail together or we can succeed together. And LeJohn, I think, you've said it multiple times. We just have to think outside of ourselves.
Okay, new plan. How about, instead of talking about how our kids and our kids' kids are going to deal with this, why don't we call them our guns? Our guns are going to suffer if we don't fix the planet. Our guns are going to suffer.
That makes me so mad. I just want to grab one of my kids and shoot somebody with it.
Just a thought.
So listen, think about your guns and your guns.
Rat-a-tat-tat, bitches.
When it comes to climate change, even if you can't think about other people, if you can't empathize or sympathize with the future generations, look at the science. And to quote LeJohn Woods from a much earlier episode, we're going to make a t-shirt that says, trust the science. And on the back, 2 dicks.
Phil Kolis, want to thank you once again for your amazing talents. Air Bloom, once again, you can find him at airbloommusic.com, on Twitter at airbloom_music, and Facebook at airbloommusic. That's Phil Kolis. Check him out. Do it. Do it now. Whatever you're doing, stop doing it and check him out.
We just went there. Now you can go to thegoingtherepodcast.com for links to our socials and all the places you can hear the podcast.
We don't have a lot of friends. Will you be ours? Leave us a review, give us a rating, subscribe, and share with some of your friends.
This podcast is made possible by its hosts and Frame One Media in association with Lindsay Baker, Tyler Kubisti, Michael Madgar, Joe Calley, and Bobby Thomas.